get started in a couple minutes, so please find your seats. Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank the CeSar. This is just such a wonderful facility, and the people that work here have been so hospitable. I really would like to thank you very much. And can I have a round of applause for them, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. Commissioner Merman, Commissioner Welsh, distinguished panelists, honored guests, thank you for being here today. My name is Al Lindenberg, and I'm CFO of Capital Analytics. We're excited to have you join us for this, the debut of our first edition of Invest Tampa Bay. As you may already know, Capital Analytics specializes in annual business reports that explain to the local, national, and international investor, entrepreneur, and business person why they should be investing in the markets we cover, and why now. Since the very first edition of Invest was published 5 years ago in Miami, our coverage has expanded throughout the East Coast and the state of Florida, producing these in-depth market guides in the metro areas of Tampa, Palm Beach, and greater Fort Lauderdale. This year we'll also expand to Orlando and Jacksonville and other states throughout the East Coast. We would not have been able to accomplish this without the energetic support of everybody we meet, and Tampa Bay has been no exception. Today's discussions are forward-looking and reflective of strategic plans and innovative ideas coming from both the private and public sectors. We will learn more about how healthcare is driving growth in many of these areas, what the future of transportation and mobility should look like to improve the lives of our residents, and how innovation and technology are helping to drive the change in these industries as well as many others. After today's discussions, our report will be presented to you for the very first time. While the finished product is a polished and sleek, well-rounded, 156-page report, a lot of hard work goes into making it the most comprehensive business report that there is. We dedicate close to 8 months in market, meeting with over 200 leaders in both the public and private sectors to discuss their views on what are the top challenges and opportunities to compile what becomes the analysis of our report this year. I'd like to thank Alex Wilkinson and our entire team that continues to grow each year for all of their hard work and dedication, and the couple hundred local leaders and decision makers that our team has met with who are generous with both their time and their information. Thank you very much. I'd also like to give a special thanks to our sponsors that are here today. Strategic Property Partners, AJAX Building Corporation, Carlton Fields, First Citizens Bank, Greenspoon Marder, HealthEdge Investment Partners, KnowBe4, RDManagement, Shumaker Advisors, Dremex, and the CeSar. It is with your support that we are able to continue with our good works. Thank you very much for all your time and energy that you put into this report with us. And now, please help me welcome Jack Miller, our Regional Director at Capital Analytics, to the stage. Jack?
Thank you, Al. Good afternoon, everyone. Commissioner Welch, Commissioner Merman, all of our distinguished guests that are here today. We thank you for being here to help us celebrate the inaugural edition of Invest Tampa Bay. I would like to take a moment to introduce myself. I'm Jack Miller. I'm overseeing the production of all of our ongoing publications. I'm looking forward to getting to know each and all of you better in the coming months. And please feel free to reach out to me as we continue to work together to produce excellent B2B digital, print, and conference platforms. We want to help the community achieve the dynamic goals that have been set forth. This is an exciting time to be in the Tampa Bay area as the economic profile of the region continues its rapid rise, and as we see a growing investment hunger as well as the ever-increasing diversification of what Tampa Bay offers to both well-established organizations and to the entrepreneurially minded. These are just some of the reasons why we chose Tampa Bay as our most recent area of expansion. Through our reports, we reach over 650,000 key decision makers in both the public and private sectors, and in nearly every business sector. They are also read in 48 countries around the world by organizations such as accounting firms, financial institutions, venture capitalists, hedge funds, industrial conglomerates, governmental organizations, and more. Capital Analytics also partners with key local chambers of commerce, business associations, as well as key conferences and events, where all members or attendees are given complimentary access to the publication. We feel a great responsibility at our firm towards our readership and providing these strategic, informative platforms that not only showcase the strengths and opportunities in a city or greater metro area, but that draw synergies with their neighbors further afield. This is why we've expanded throughout Florida. We want our global audience to be able to understand what the future looks like for our cities, counties, states, and the country as a whole. Tampa Bay not only has risen to be a powerhouse in Florida, but is being nationally recognized for what has been accomplished here. And this report will give readers a better understanding of the state overall. When conducting our research, we take a detailed look at the area's investment climate. We ask ourselves, where are the gaps? Where can our readers get involved? How do we help them better understand this market? What innovative initiatives are raising the profile of the market? That has led us to the narrative of both the Invest Tampa Bay 2019 report and to today's event, where our lives are being most affected from the workplace to our homes and to our well-being. This year's Invest Tampa Bay report highlights the Tampa Bay market as a high-value business and investment destination, bolstered by its unique blend of sunshine, sand, culture, technology, entrepreneurship, sports, and much, much more. So far, in 2019, Tampa Bay's GDP has experienced an almost 3.5% growth. The region's unemployment ending in December 2018 at 3.2%, down from 3.4% a year earlier. The population of Tampa Bay MSA was an estimated 3 million, just over 3 million people at the end of 2018, and is expected to surpass 3.1 million by the close of 2019. Tampa Bay's economic activity expanded at a strong pace throughout 2018 and continues to be promoted as an attractive place to do business throughout this year and beyond. Forbes named Tampa Bay as the #2 destination on its list of the top 10 best places for young entrepreneurs. Additionally, Hillsborough County voters approved a 1-cent sales tax that will raise an estimated $276 million a year for the next 30 years for transportation improvements across the county. Healthcare, real estate, technology and innovation, tourism, banking and finance, construction and infrastructure, and sports are covered in great detail in this market guide, as they continue to be major economic drivers in the area. This edition also takes a closer look at the economy, education, and legal sectors, analyzing the investment and development in these areas. We hope you will find today's program to be insightful. Our panels will address the present and future of the key sectors of healthcare, technology, and mobility. Not only are we debuting the report, but we would like to bring the content of the report alive for all of you, our audience. We will be hearing from experts who we know and trust discuss important themes found within the pages of the report. They will give us their insights on the ideas and technologies that are driving modernity and attractiveness for all demographics in this community, and how these innovations are not just addressing today's challenges, but building the future profile of the region. To introduce, before our panels, we will hear an opening keynote address from Commissioner Welch, and then at the end of the day, we will have a final keynote address by Commissioner Sandra Merman. They will discuss how the region is working together for the betterment of everyone. At the conclusion of the content portion of today's event, all of us at Capital Analytics and the staff of the CeSar are excited to host you for the networking cocktail portion of today's event. I would love to meet as many of you as possible, so please do not hesitate to approach me during that time. Again, thank you very much for all of you being here today. Now I would like to take a moment and welcome Kenneth Welch, Commissioner of the Pinellas Board of County Commissioners, who will be giving our opening keynote address.
Good afternoon. Y'all need more caffeine? Good afternoon. We can bring the coffee out to the room. Jack, I want to thank you, and I guess I'm going to improvise now because there's no mic stand, but improvise and move on. Good afternoon and welcome to the Invest Tampa Bay Launch Conference. On behalf of the Pinellas County Commission, I'd like to thank Capital Analytics Associates, all the sponsors of this event, and most of all to the business, community, civic, and elected leaders who are in this room today. I want to thank you for all that you do every day to move our community forward. Al, where's Al? Al, who made the opening statements. From Capital Analytics, did he leave already? Wherever Al is, I hope I got that name right, I want to thank you for holding this event here at the Don CeSar. Not only because I live 12 minutes away, and I started the stopwatch when I left, but because of the viewing perspective. And I just want to leave those two words with you, viewing perspective, that coming to the beach always brings to me. And I see Councilmember Frizzolowski back there. Always good to be in St. Pete Beach. So, now, I have a bucket list. My wife calls it a midlife crisis. About 2 years ago, I bought a Harley Davidson. It's a 2018 Slim, for those of you who ride. And one of my favorite rides is hopping on the Bayway, coming across and riding up Gulf Boulevard and viewing our beautiful beaches. And one of the best parts of that trip is just when you get to the top of the Bayway, and you may have noticed that when you came over today. You get to that vista, that peak of the Bayway Bridge, and then you see the Don CeSar, the pink palace. And you see those beautiful Gulf beaches that are the best in the world, according to TripAdvisor. I'm not just saying that because I'm a county commissioner. And you kind of pinch yourself and say, you shrug it on and say, you know, we live here. This is our backyard, and we kind of take that for granted. We are so blessed to be here. And those kinds of special places and experiences happen all around the Tampa Bay community. I experience the same thing when I come across the Skyway from Manatee and come into Pinellas County and see downtown St. Pete, revitalized downtown St. Pete on the right, and Fort DeSoto and our beautiful beaches on the left. I notice it when I'm going across the Howard Franklin. Of course, I'm not going across after 2 p.m. because it's like in traffic. But on a good day or early, I view downtown Tampa and like, man, this is a beautiful community. This is our community. And when I'm flying into the best airport in the nation at Tampa International Airport, and the pilot's descending, and you look around and you see the Clearwater Courtney Campbell Causeway, you see Gateway, you see downtown Tampa, and you say, this is our community. We live in a fabulous place here in Tampa Bay. There is so much about Tampa Bay that contributes to our strength as a region. Our workforce, our colleges and universities, USF, St. Pete College, Hillsborough Community College, UT. Our economic diversity from high-tech manufacturing to healthcare, finance, tourism, and many other business sectors. Our economic development folks will have me to say that we're not just about tourism, but you might not know Pinellas County is second in the state in manufacturing jobs, so we are diversifying our economy. And of course, the most important thing is our people, including people like the folks in this room today, our leaders in the community, leaders who are committed to progress and equity, shared responsibility, equal opportunity, life balance for the folks that make our jobs and our businesses work, and innovation. I'm happy to say that we're making tremendous progress here in Tampa Bay. As a third-generation resident of St. Petersburg, and there are not many of us, I appreciate the fact that we have moved beyond so much of the unproductive, territorial infighting and short-sightedness that has so often hampered our progress as a community. For example, yesterday, at the Pinellas NPO meeting, for Pinellas, where I serve, our board, our planning body, approved a set of 5 regional transportation priorities, including the Central Avenue BRT, which will come down Gulf Boulevard. We're going to continue to work with Councilmember Frizzolowski in St. Pete Beach, but that is coming. I-275 improvements in Hillsborough and I-75 improvements. Those 5 projects were approved by the Pinellas NPO. Earlier that morning, I understand after midnight, the Hillsborough NPO approved those same 5 priorities. And the Pasco NPO also approved those same 5 priorities. Now, growing up here, I can tell you that hasn't always happened, or it's never happened, let me just say that. And I'm not going to go Joe Biden on you, but this is a big deal for our community, that we were able to get on the same page and identify priorities. That kind of collaborative leadership by the TMA, which is the Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas leaders, is what it will take to move us forward as a region. When we speak with one voice on the big issues, when we can tap into our collective vision and speak to our collective challenges, when we adopt that view, that perspective, that we have real strength as a region, and we can still respect and preserve those things that make our towns and neighborhoods so special. When we do those things, then we will move from being a great community to an exceptional Tampa Bay community. And we will compete with any region in the nation. It's through your leadership, our collaboration, and our collective vision that Tampa Bay will become an even greater community. For as great as we are today, we still have untapped potential. Unlocking that potential means addressing some long-standing issues, and I'm glad we're moving in the right direction, such as our over-reliance on cars as the only option for most of us to move around Tampa Bay. Unlocking that potential means addressing the persistent issues of housing affordability, healthcare and mental health, infrastructure, and the effectiveness of our education system. Because of our susceptibility to sea level rise, and as we stand here on the Gulf, on a peninsula within a peninsula, preserving our quality of life will require us to embrace sustainability and resiliency as a fundamental part of our long-term planning and a regular part of our day-to-day decision-making. And we are embracing that challenge in Pinellas County and in Tampa Bay. I believe that we're up to the task. The people have spoken, both with their ballots and with their wallets. Approving the Hillsborough transportation referendum last year, we need to applaud that. That's a big deal. And approving the penny for Pinellas in 2017, another 1% infrastructure tax, with 83% of the vote here in Pinellas County. And the County Commission has dedicated $165 million from the new penny beginning January 1 on economic development and housing. It's my sincere hope that Pinellas will hold. In my last year on the County Commission, I hope that we will hold another transportation referendum here in Pinellas County so that we can meet our unfunded transportation needs as well. Connecting the Tampa Bay region internally with modern transportation options and then connecting our region to the greater Orlando metro via high-speed rail, which is coming, will take our community to the next level and create a true mega region in Central Florida. We can make all of these high aspirations a reality if we continue to work together with courage, vision, collaboration, and that view, that perspective that we have tremendous strength as a Tampa Bay region. So as we move forward with the program, today's discussions will inform our understanding on important issues, including healthcare, technology and innovation, transportation, and workforce development. So thank you for your leadership. Enjoy the conference, the panel discussions, and please try to work in a sunset on the Gulf beaches. They are tremendous, and so is our Tampa Bay community. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. We'd like to begin the panel section of our program right now, so I would like to invite to the stage Lee Lazarus, partner at Greenspoon Marder, who's going to moderate our first panel and introduce the panelists.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lee Lazarus. I'm a partner at the law firm Greenspoon Marder. I'm a health lawyer, which I guess is why I'm sitting up here talking about healthcare. So, but we don't have a whole lot of time, so without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our panel. First, Tim Thompson with Baycare. After they're all up here, I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves and tell Sherry Hoback with Tampa Family Health Center. Next, John Curris at TGH, Tampa General. And finally, Phil Dingle with HealthEdge Investments. Thank you all for joining us here today. Why don't we just get started and have each of you say something about yourselves and about your company, and to make it brief. We've got a very short period of time, so let's get right at it. So why don't you get started?
As mentioned, I'm Tim Thompson. I'm Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Baycare, and I've been in this market for about 9 years, and as we just heard, it's awesome. I love it. Baycare's a great organization to be a part of. For those of you not familiar with us, we operate 15 hospitals in this market and have about 30,000 team members.
Good afternoon. I'm Sherry Hoback. I'm President and CEO of Tampa Family Health Centers. I'm excited to celebrate our 35th year of providing healthcare to the medically underserved of Hillsborough County. Also proud to say that we are the largest federally qualified healthcare center in the state of Florida, so we're right here in Tampa Bay, so we're really excited about that. And pass it on to John.
Thank you. Staying with the theme of, I guess, large and complex places, Tampa General Hospital, I'm the CEO and president of. It is a tertiary quaternary teaching facility. We're partnered with USF Health on the medical school side. We train over 700 residents and fellows, over 60 training programs. We're the second largest freestanding institution in the state, ranked U.S. News and World Report #2 in the state of Florida, #1 in the region. We have about 10,000 team members and physicians that are on staff on about 25 acres on Davis Island. And as many of you may know, we are continuing to expand our footprint across our region, and we're delighted, or I'm delighted to be here.
Thanks, John. My name is Phil. I'm with the smallest and least impressive firm up here on the stage right now. HealthEdge Investment Partners. We're a lower middle market buyout firm focusing on the healthcare marketplace exclusively and really trying to find those businesses that have outstanding products and services but that aren't yet outstanding companies. We find those in the state of Florida, the Southeast, throughout the rest of the country, and our mandate is to make them exceptional companies over the course of our 5 to 6 year holding period. We're investing out of our third fund right now, which is a $150 million vehicle, which is very small in the big scheme of things. We're kind of at the low end of the food chain, and we've had outstanding investment returns to date. Very nice to be with you all today, and I look forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you. I had the opportunity to speak with a few of our panelists before we started this afternoon, and I was asking them about some of their thoughts. But the organizers gave us a list of questions that we're supposed to go over, so I went over those as well. And there's one particular one that was of interest to me, since I happen to like technology. I've got a nice electronic watch, I've got a cell phone, we all have those on us, but we also have Fitbits, we have electronic health records. We have many different examples of how technology has impacted healthcare. So I'd like to focus on that and ask our panelists how they see technology and the rise of technology as affecting their business and how they see it affecting technology, and since this is an economic forum, how it might affect the economy of this area too. So Tim, why don't you get started?
Sure, I'm happy to get started. As the Chief Information Officer, it's probably my favorite topic is technology.
That's why I picked you first.
Okay, well, thank you. And appreciate that. And it is exciting in healthcare. I've been in healthcare almost 40 years and had an opportunity to see everything from billing systems, which was basically what we did when I started, to what we're doing today, and some of the things that you talk about. And it's really consumer driven to me. We're seeing people want to be more engaged in their healthcare. We see a desire for people to follow their own health, whether it's hourly on their Fitbits or their Apple Watches, or understand what happened when they can get their results as soon as they can and proactively do something about it. Some of the things that come to mind when I think about that, Most of us in the healthcare world have an EMR vendor, and we all have those health records. But what's interesting to me, most of my meetings today aren't with a Cerner or an Epic or some of those companies. We spend a lot of time at Amazon. As a matter of fact, we'll be there next week. We spend a lot of time with Apple, with Google. The world's really changed for us and what we can deliver. And what we've all seen in our life is those solutions are just more friendly than anything you've ever had to deal with in healthcare before. So we actually have an innovation officer now. He gets up every day and thinks about how can we make the experience better for the physicians, for the consumers. So we partnered with Apple. If you don't want to use our portal, which I happen to think is great, you can use your Apple app, and you can get all your information about you in the Apple Healthcare app. You can hold a spot before you show up. You can enter your information now before you actually have to go make a visit. If you don't even want to go make a visit, from home we give you the opportunity through Baycare Anywhere to see a physician, as many of us do. And now we're in about 30 public stores, and we continue to expand that. So we're really seeing how people want to interact with their healthcare change.
What do you think you spent in the last year in technology?
What do I think we spent in the last year in technology?
Well, this is an economic forum, so let's talk about that.
It's an economic forum. It's changed very much. We used to look at things from a capital and an operating perspective. And when I think about information technology, you know, we easily probably spend $150, $180 million focused on technology.
Sherry.
So I think the thing that's really interesting for me when we talk about technology and informatics is I'm a nurse by profession. So I started with paper charts, so without exception of charting on patients. So moving from paper to technology and watching us on this journey has been wonderful. For me, as an outpatient ambulatory, it's really about connecting with these guys, right? And being able to make sure that our data going from our electronic health records can be shared in a way that is useful for the providers quickly and readily. That's what our patients want. That's what they need. We need to be able to get them from point A to point B quickly, so we keep them out of the emergency room, we keep them out of the hospitals, and we make sure that they're staying healthy. A lot of the technology today that we look at, we're excited about, even being an ambulatory. One of the great things for us is the opportunity to draw down on grants and partner with the hospitals, partner with our community, partner with USF, some of the major other institutions, to really work on predictive analytics, trying to figure out when my doc keystrokes a word 3 or 4 times, that's going to tell me that my patient is looking to have this disease, maybe not now, but maybe in 6 months, maybe a year from now. And that's where we can start readying change so that we can kind of cut them off at the pass.
Excellent. John, I understand you all have a big investment in Epic.
We do, but let me take this a little differently, if you wouldn't mind. So I was, in January, since this is an economic conference, I was at JP Morgan Chase's Healthcare Economic Conference in San Francisco, which I'm told is arguably one of the most important healthcare conferences in the world. That happens every January. And I spent an entire week there doing lots of different things. One of the things I got to spend a lot of time doing is hearing about how the next app was going to change healthcare and solve all my problems, which is untrue. What we have right now in the sea of technology is very discrete, transactionally oriented technology, apps, whatever you want to call them. The question that we ask ourselves at TGH, and I think quite frankly we should ask ourselves as an industry, is how do you take technology and bend the quality and cost curve? Because giving you all this information sounds fun and exciting and a bit sexy, and hey, I got my Fitbit. What are you doing with the information? How are you changing your lives? Quite frankly, how are we changing the way we do our work, providing you the care that you need and your loved one needs? At TGH, just to underscore what I'm saying, is we have a partnership with GE Healthcare where we're using artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, with human ingenuity, industrial engineers, and we are literally changing the way we deliver care brick by brick at TGH, because we believe that the consumer of healthcare deserves a very patient-centered, very efficient system of care, centered around their needs, centered around your needs, because we believe that if we can actually bend the cost curve in the Tampa Bay region, we become a more attractive place for businesses to come, because they can quantify that the cost of healthcare in the Tampa Bay region is less expensive than the cost of healthcare in other regions around the country. And wouldn't that be a great place to invest, move your business, for people to come and live? I mean, that's the journey that we're on. So we're really asking some very difficult questions around, let's not get caught up with that next widget. Let's figure out a patient-centered, provider-centered system of care, leveraging technology to improve quality, drive costs down, and pass it on to the consumer of healthcare. That's the journey that we're on right now.
Thank you.
I'm happy to add on to that. I mean, if you look at what's happened with technology over the past 20 years, and we've gone from these servers and these mainframes to all of a sudden these iPhones that we all carry around in the cloud, which I still don't understand, but I know it's out there. I know it houses all the stuff that's important to us. Healthcare is now changing just as rapidly. We previously had the big hospitals, and we have the two most significant hospitals in the Bay Area here represented today. But you also have all the urgent care facilities. You have the multifarious means by which we're supposed to be addressing all this stuff, which the folks to my right are the experts of, not me. But things are changing fast, just as the change with technology has reached an epic pace. It's the same with healthcare, and we all have to be on our game that much more, that much faster, that much smarter to stay up with it for sure.
Are there any particular advancements in technology that you see have been particularly useful in your respective businesses? We can start on this end again. Tim, is there anything in particular that you see as an advancement in technology that has been particularly useful to the patient?
You know, I mentioned a number of them. I'd agree with John as well. It is, when we're focused on a particular technology, hopefully it's not the latest, hottest thing. Those things do weigh in. If you have a Fitbit and you just collect the data, or you have, there's now diabetes testing that you can do at home, there's cardiac testing you can do at home, and we're doing all those things. We actually, in a couple of our retail centers now, have shops that we call tech decks. So if a physician wants a patient to track what they're doing or take better care of themselves, which ultimately, hopefully, will drive costs down if we're all taking better care of ourselves, we help that person connect it to their phone because they don't know what to do with it. So we see wearables as a pretty big thing coming. I talked about the ability to see a physician when you need to see them. We personally had to use that. Instead of waiting a day or 2 days to see someone, we've been able to contact a physician in the middle of the night, get to the Walgreens at 3 a.m., get what you need, and avoid the cost of going to a visit or letting that illness progress. So I think it is about what can we do to help drive down the cost, and what can we give the consumers to help us do that. So we're doing a number of those things.
And by the way, it's not always high-tech stuff. You know, to brag about one of our products, we have a wireless Bluetooth ECG and EKG monitoring device, which sounds highfalutin. It's simply the means by which we can connect and monitor somebody's vitals. And when they get up out of their bed in the hospital, which is where we use these, and have to go to the restroom, which is where many cardiac events occur, it's nice if you continue to monitor it by Bluetooth as opposed to the cables that you would otherwise disconnect from when you go into the restroom. So very simple things. Think about the pharmacy prescriptions that we all get from our doctors, right? And guess what? 30 to 40% of them don't get filled. Because people like me see a doctor and he says, look, you need to go get this kind of medication. And of course I conclude, because I think I know everything, that I'm not going to get it and I'm going to pick it up. But what if there was some software or artificial intelligence in there is, that can connect where if there isn't follow-up, meaning if I don't go by my script, all of a sudden I'm notified, the doctor's notified over the next couple of days, you could maintain much higher adherence and probably save some lives doing that. And that's not a high-cost, high-tech vehicle there. So some of it just really, really simple blocking and tackling things.
I mean, that's a great example of changing the way care is delivered. Internally, I mean, I think AI artificial intelligence is a very big deal. We are all in on that at TGH right now.
Do you have any examples of how AI is really?
Sure, I'll give you a very quick example. One of the metrics that we measure that affects all of you in this room is length of stay, how long you stay in a hospital. The idea is if we can reduce the length of stay appropriately, not push you out of the hospital, but also not keep you in the hospital longer than you need to be, your cost improves, your quality improves, service improves, morale improves, profitability improves. We've reduced our length of stay by lots of different things, but in a big way by using artificial intelligence by a half a day. Now, a half a day at Tampa General Hospital roughly is about 25 beds a day we free up. So instead of us building the next bed tower, which there's nothing wrong with that, but instead of that, our goal is to reduce length of stay by a day and a half, find about 100 to 150 beds in the system, make the experience a lot more efficient, not spend $200 million on a bed tower, but spend half of that on improving what we have. And then over time, when we can reproduce results, pass that on to the consumer, pass it on to the payer, pass it on to the self-insured employer, to the businesses that are in this room, and drive down healthcare by improving the outcomes that you receive at TGH. Artificial intelligence isn't the holy grail, but it is a critically important piece of technology that allows that to do what I just described. And by the way, I'd invite anybody here to come to Tampa General and go through our control room, look at the artificial intelligence. We're moving into a 7,500 square foot facility in August that will be state-of-the-art, that will manage the entire system of care. We open that up to the whole community because we think, again, it's not the single answer, but it's a piece of technology that we think has a very bright future in healthcare.
Thank you.
So I think for us at Tampa Family, it's a balance. It's a balance between the community and providing the healthcare. My healthcare centers are embedded in the worst areas, the most, healthcare is not in the areas for which my healthcare centers are. My patients didn't have healthcare if I wasn't in these areas. And I think what's really interesting about that is that there are a lot of social determinants that my patients face on a daily basis. The ability to read, the ability to pay their light bills, the ability to not live in their cars with their children or decide if they're going to get their $5 prescription filled. So we face a little bit of a different challenge when we look at technology. What I can tell you is at Hillsborough County, we have an amazing Hillsborough County healthcare plan. They've opened up healthy living centers that we collaborate with and work in the community alongside community partners to say, how can we leverage your technology with the services that we provide, with the education that our patients need to understand how to use healthcare. It's one thing for me to say that I have the ability and I have the technology, but I also am trying to improve the health of my community. If I improve the health of the community, then I know my community is going to stay, the kids are going to go to school, the parents don't have to miss work, they can keep their jobs. It is a beautiful experience that I can't do it alone. I have to do it with community partners. When I work with community partners, I'm also leveraging their technology and their talent. We look at local institutions. We look at the talent that's being brought in from the graduates that have all the ability to come in and look at my software systems. The software system that I use is a plug-and-play system. I have we're on AthenaNet, and Athena is a great system, but we've got to plug and play a lot of other additional products and softwares into it to make it as comprehensive as possible. We have the ability, my patients, I have 14 locations in Hillsborough County. My patient can be seen in town and country and get their medication filled in Brandon. We're electronic, we can move around for our patients. We have the lowest per member per month rating for healthcare in primary care for the Hillsborough County Healthcare Plan that tells us that the standardized process that we're using with leveraging our electronic health record systems and being able to talk and show other facilities what we're doing at a rapid pace, so we reduce using CT scans, multiple MRIs, multiple refills on medication. That allows us the ability, but also remembering that the patient is the epicenter of the medical home. And if they don't understand the care that's being rendered or understand the technology that we're providing them, then it's useless. So we work really hard to make sure that they understand what we're providing them and how we can leverage that to help them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Can I just add one quick thing?
Sure.
Because, you know, we're blessed in this region to have some wonderful health systems providing great care, doing really innovative work across a whole spectrum of services. One thing we struggle with as an industry, and as I was listening to your answer, it struck me, is it would be wonderful if we could work with a provider, somebody out there that could tie us all together, because we don't do that very well, right? So I love the ability to connect in with everything you just talked about, and what's unique about our industry is we can compete and collaborate. We can partner for the good of the community and the good of the health and wellness of the community. But the technology hasn't evolved to a place where it can be done seamlessly. And that fragmentation causes lots of problems, and it adds lots of cost unnecessarily.
But that was the original intent of this whole electronic health records movement, isn't it? To allow
I mean,
communication?
from one guy's perspective, that was one of the outcomes people hoped for nationally. It wasn't the intent. The intent was to drive quality up. The intent was to drive, and I'm giving you the intent of what we get told by the government. It's to drive quality up, to drive costs down. See, I think there's a misnomer that a bunch of administrators sat in a room and said, let's go to the electronic medical record. No, that's not how it happened. The government said you will go to the electronic medical record. Whether the electronic medical record is ready or not, you're going, and you guys will figure it out along the way. Unfortunately, figuring out along the way can be extremely expensive, unnecessarily. And that's the challenge that we're confronted with. We've got great systems doing great work, but in silos. We need something that brings it all together. And there's great examples out there of it happening, but that's an area of real opportunity, I think.
I had an opportunity to speak with a client the other day, and he was talking about some new technology that had been developed, having to do, it was a new process for curing a particular malady that, well, I hesitate to even say what it was, I'll tell you, it's hemorrhoids. So it was a treat hemorrhoids. Now, it's a very ubiquitous type of ailment. A lot of people suffer from it. Physicians have ways of dealing with it, but there's a new way of dealing with it. It's electronic, it's new technology, it's non-invasive, doesn't cut anything, nothing, there's no surgery. It's just a particular electronic device that will cure the problem. The problem that they came up with was that the reimbursement for that technology didn't keep up with it. It wasn't enough to make it worth the doctor's while to invest in this relatively expensive new technology that would have been tremendously useful for their patients, but not useful to the doctor in his pocketbook. How do you see the reimbursement keeping up with this technology?
So two things. We've had 3 hemorrhoid deals come into our office over the past 10 years, and I always take those and I hand them off to one of my business partners because I don't do hemorrhoids. One of the, in addition to the rate of change, I'm sorry, this is serious. In addition to the rate of change of healthcare and technology, reimbursement is not getting better. Whether it's a government payer or commercial payer, it's coming down. They're scrutinizing everything. The people on this panel know that as well as anybody. And so that's one of the things we have to get our arms around in terms of investing. And when we find businesses, they can't be great at everything, but they need to be great at 2 or 3 things. And what we then know is that we can find a collaborative partner to help us on the other function that we need to fill a gap on, right? So if we have a set of customers and we have to provide 5 services for them, but we're only good at 3 of them, we'll go out and we'll seek that other collaborator. By the way, we may end up buying the other collaborator if it makes sense, but I think you have to do that because reimbursement is a nightmare. By the way, I'd submit that if you sell goods to Walmart, you also have a reimbursement issue, right? So it's not just healthcare, but clearly in healthcare, I think it's more significant than any other sector.
As innovation moves,
I'm seeing the hook come out, so I think we
as
ought to take
innovation
that.
moves,
So-
we're seeing that too. Even around telemedicine, it's slow to get reimbursed for what we know we can do, and we can get people access. One other quick comment. I agree completely on being all in on the AI stuff. I think innovation and things like AI are going to drive quality and cost better than the government mandates that we've had around EMRs.
Well, I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Big applause for our panel.
And thank you very much the participants of our panel. If I could have all your attention. Now I'm pleased to invite the moderator of our second panel to the stage, Ms. Rita Loman, President of Pilot Bank.
What I'm going to do is a little different. I'm going to ask our panelists to go ahead and start making their way down, and then they're going to introduce themselves. So Stu, Greg, Ron, and Brian, if y'all would come on down for me, that would be great. And then they can introduce themselves a lot better than I can. Okay, guys, you know each other well enough. Let's have a seat and get this going. Okay, we're going to start with Brian. If you'll go ahead and share with us a little bit about yourself and your company and what you do.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Kornfeld. I'm the president and co-founder of Synapse Florida. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that's working to connect and organize the innovation communities across Florida. In the past, this state has been very unorganized. A lot of what we do actually comes from a lot of years of research in the Tampa Bay area and wondering why innovation ecosystems such as Tulsa, Oklahoma, Lincoln, Nebraska, and Iowa City, Iowa were ranked higher than us in places for entrepreneurs to move to. We always had a great curiosity as to why we weren't compared to such markets as Nashville, Austin, Boulder, San Diego, similar sized markets to the Tampa Bay region. And so we put together a little cohort coalition that we now call Synapse in 2017, and we've been working to help organize, and hearing that Forbes says that we're the second best place to move to makes us very proud, shows a lot of traction for success.
Great, thank you, Ron.
Perfect. I was going to say I'm Greg Cadet, but everybody knows Greg, and everybody would believe that for a second. My name is Ron Cristaldi. I'm a business lawyer with the Shumaker, Kendrick firm, and also act as the president and CEO of Shumaker's public policy and lobby firm, Shumaker Advisors.
I like that, act. Okay, now, that's a real interesting word, that you act as the president.
I pretend.
I can do that with you.
I pretend to do a lot of things. And we are a full-service business law firm and full-service public affairs and lobby firm.
Great, thank you, Greg.
Greg Cadet, I'm the managing director for the Gulf Coast region, Florida. Ron and I back years and years ago, we bumped into each other walking the dogs and our kiddos, so we go way back. So UBS is a global wealth management firm. The official headquarters is in Zurich, Switzerland. Our domestic business is in New York City. We are a core wealth management firm. We have three types of clients: institutional, corporate, and individual clients, and all the entities that we have as individuals. We have two additional businesses, our investment bank as well as our asset management company. They are complementary businesses to to our wealth management business globally. We are the largest private bank in the world, approaching $3 trillion under management. We are in 60 countries around the globe, and there's really no one that really looks like us from a wealth management perspective. So excited to be here, and thank you for having me up on stage.
Great. Stu?
Yeah, hi. My name is Stu Sharman. I'm the founder and CEO of KnowBe4. We're the world's largest security awareness training company, and organizations like Baycare and Tampa General are our customers. And I can announce happily that we are Tampa Bay's most recent unicorn, which was announced yesterday.
I know. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things that I thought was quite interesting is we always talk about talent. And so when we look at the talent and this actual workforce, how do you find talent? What are you looking for? And is the talent truly here? And Brian, we'll start with you.
Thank you. For us, we're helping to connect talent to the right companies, and there's a lot of great talent that's homegrown here, whether they're from the Tampa Bay area and then they go off to college somewhere else, or they're at USF, UT, even Ringling College, Florida Poly. But also there's a lot of people who move here for second careers. And there's a lot of people who either have sold a company and they're looking for something to do, or the best use case of a second career is the military. We have a great talent pool sitting right at MacDill Air Force Base, and they might not have that traditional college degree, but they have years of great experience with logistics training. I know Colonel Josh Potter does some amazing things as it relates to blockchain, and this type of talent pool and type of talent pipeline really needs to be celebrated and utilized in a great way. There's a gentleman named Kent Parra who's a senior vice president at Grow Financial, and what they do with him and the way that they utilize that type of talent pool and that knowledge that's in his brain and so many great years of leadership, it's something to be celebrated. And I would very much encourage anybody who's looking for talent and top talent to look straight at the special operators and those at MacDill.
Great.
Sure, well, make no mistake, in this day and age where technology makes it possible really to work from anywhere in the world, the quality of life, the quality of culture, and the sense of place are really the most important things for attracting and maintaining a talent pool. And this place that we call Tampa Bay, is more competitive than any other place in the world. We've got fantastic universities here. Brian was mentioning MacDill Air Force Base and all of our military personnel who choose to stay in this region. We've got great arts and cultural organizations. Commissioner Welch mentioned beaches. But the reality is, this is a place where young, talented individuals want to be, and this is a place that has a lot of momentum because of really all of the sense of place that we have and the ability to do business around the world from Tampa Bay.
Absolutely. Would either of you like to add to that before we go to the next question?
I keep saying that being in Tampa Bay is a massive competitive advantage. We have really no problem with the talent pool, sales support, tech support, customer success. It's all right here. We may have to go to Orlando now and then, but only specific high-level developers, we need to relocate here. But it's a fantastic place to be.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely amazing. That's great to hear.
Yeah, one of the good measures, I think, does your community or region have talent is whether our children stay here. And I think that's something that's becoming absolutely a reality in Tampa Bay, is that many of our kids, I assume, will have a college kid in another year. And the big indicator is going to be whether he wants to come back to Tampa Bay. And I think what I've seen from those that are a little bit older than me that have college kids, or those that are in their 20s and 30s, they want to be back in Tampa Bay, and they want to be here. And because there's an enormous quality of life, there's talent here, there's growth here, there's energy, and the optimism, I think, is off the charts. So I think from a talent perspective, we've got it going.
Well, we're talking about talent. Let's also talk about why is Tampa Bay a hub for this type of energy and this type of innovation. And so, Stu, we'll start with you.
Low cost, high quality of life.
Very simple, but very good. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
There's not much to add. Other than I think it's right in front of your face, or excuse me, if you're not in this conference and look out the window, I think you can see it. The quality of life is off the charts. So you look at the other cities from a competitive standpoint, it's not that easy. Getting in and out of the city, driving around the city, train. You go to New York, Chicago, Denver, Atlanta, it's not as easy as it is when you think about Tampa Bay. And the quality of life, I think, is just, again, is off the charts.
I would say, in one word, momentum. And the momentum is not just something that was born of the last few years. It's born of vision in the 80s when things like Moffitt Cancer Center were founded here, bring science and technology to the region. It's things that are happening like today, like strategic property partners and the development in downtown Tampa, the innovation that they are employing with things like central chilling station to activate all the rooftops in the entire development, making it a sense of place for young people to want to come and work, and it's really just this tremendous momentum we have right now.
Even thinking on the smaller scale of startup companies, in Israel, known as the startup nation, 8 million people, they consider a critical mass of startups in one industry to be about 500 startups in any given industry. We have about 300 to 400 startups total in the Tampa Bay area, which means we're growing. We're on our way up there, but they're starting to organize themselves specifically within some of our leading core industries, which means that we're going to start to see a lot of growth in those industries. So when you look at cybersecurity, what's happened with KnowBe4, the rapid growth with ReliaQuest and Align, when you start to look at healthcare and what's happened with PeerFit and Immertech, there's a lot of great growth happening specifically in those industries, which is then going to help us continue to build into those high-tech jobs.
And we're very lucky along those lines, but there have been pitfalls throughout the United States as it relates to technology, cybersecurity, employment, those types of things. So can any of you elaborate a little bit on what we can do to avoid that?
One thing that a lot of places are trying to do is they're trying to be the next Silicon Valley. And if Silicon Valley tried to replace the most innovative city in the time when they really took it over, they would have tried to be the next Detroit, Michigan. We really should not try to be the next Silicon Valley. We can't. There's no way whatsoever that Tampa Bay could be, but we could be the best possible Tampa Bay. We can really cater to our strengths. We have a lot of them, and if we can continue to keep our identity versus trying to be something that we're not, that's going to really help push us and keep us right on the mission.
One of the challenges that many regions face is really thinking regionally. And the strides that we've made in thinking regionally over the past 5 to 6 years in this whole Tampa Bay region, this 8-county region, are extraordinary. I'm looking at JP and thinking about the economic development and how I've had the opportunity to attend trade missions out of the country in places like Morocco and Santiago, Chile, and Mexico City, and Bogota, Colombia, and sit with people from Pasco and Pinellas and Hillsborough and watch our port, our airport, our business from this community sell what they have to offer by way of export. And it's really tremendous. And that regional approach to things is a strength that we have, and it's a strength that's a little bit new to us because we historically had thought in silos in this region. That's our competitive edge, and that's one of the things that's going to differentiate us from other areas in the country.
Very good. Others?
Staying on cybersecurity?
Well, we can
can.
say on, what's going to keep us on that competitive edge and not see us go other places.
I think I want to make a comment on the cybersecurity for a second. So, this is a big deal, especially in finance for wealth management. While I think many banks and wealth management firms and other financial institutions are very focused on trying to figure this out and prevent the attacks, this is an individual solution as well at the same time. I mean, it's everywhere. And people are trying to get at your money every single day, every second of the day they're trying to get at you. So from that comment, I felt like it shouldn't be left uncommented on in terms of this is like an individual effort. It means you and everybody in this room should be highly focused on it. And in terms of our long-term, I think, to echo what Ron said, our community leaders, I think, are so pro-business and thinking outside of our particular region, especially our economic development corporations. I'm really impressed about how aggressive, how proactive, and how much they're thinking differently about going out there and really selling our story and who we are, and they have a really tight message about who we are, and it's resonating all over the place. When you say Tampa Bay differently around the country, I think there's no question people are feeling a different message, and we're sharing the wins, and I think that's one of the biggest things we can do is talk about where we're winning, because people want to be a part of that.
Absolutely. You know, one thing that you just said, I just finished up with an FBA conference on cybersecurity, on a number of things, but a gentleman from Amazon was with us on cybersecurity, and they shared that you need to worry inside as much as you do outside, and I do think that's important as we continue. Would you like to add anything to this as we continue?
Yeah, that was a softball, thank you. We obviously are focusing on cybersecurity and the human side, which is always the weak link in cybersecurity. So being aware of the threats that are out there and understanding and recognizing those threats is key. But to answer your question, if you want to prevent the kind of problems, you need to consistently and continually build your skill set locally as a region, meaning a strong integration between industry and universities. Before works closely with the business college at USF, and we help train people in this particular area and start them as soon as possible. So tight integration, university, private sector is super important.
I'm just going to add, we've got a fairly significant data breach practice, and what we see, unfortunately, too frequently are people who haven't engaged individuals like Stu and the tremendous things that he can do to help prevent data breaches, help prevent those penetrations into your system, theft of data, and have to clean it up after the fact. So one of the key factors that this region is engaged in, is emanating from USF, is, and again, great companies like Stu's company are helping companies think proactively, not just here in our region, but all across the globe.
Absolutely. This next question, Brian, it's for you. How do you and other entrepreneurial organizations work to address the challenges that are really changing the narrative here in Tampa Bay?
Changing the narrative here is one of my key specific missions. I'm from here originally. I lived in Los Angeles for a couple of years, and I got to hear a lot of the jokes about who we are, and that people think Tampa Bay is just hurricanes and Florida Man and retirees, which clearly is nowhere near the truth whatsoever. We have to tell the stories, and what we were talking about, we have to celebrate the wins. We have to talk about billion-dollar companies like KnowBe4, billion-dollar exits like ConnectWise, and how Arnie Bellini created 70 new millionaires in that exit of ConnectWise. 70. Did not have to do that in any way whatsoever. Things like this should be celebrated. Things like events like this, publications like Invest Tampa Bay or the Innovate Tampa Bay book, the rapid growth of PeerFit now being valued in the 9 figures, events like the Synapse Summit even, where we are able to tell some great stories and bring together companies that are small and large all at the same time, right together with each other. We were able to trend nationally on Twitter this year at the Synapse Summit to start to tell these stories nationally, which is a huge accomplishment that the world is really starting to notice. And if we can continue to notice, we can continue to celebrate these wins, that narrative is going to change slowly at a time. We recently welcomed Steve Case and his Rise of the Restaurant. Steve Case was the founder of AOL, where he comes to emerging markets, and he said, if this was a baseball game, we're in the 2nd inning. So we have a long way to go to continue to do this, but if he is coming here, now the world is really going to start to take notice, and we just have to keep this forward momentum going.
Great point. Greg, the next one's going to be for you. How has the evolving tech landscape changed wealth management services, and how has it improved or declined what the customer experience looks like?
Yeah, good question. I think, pull out my phone, you think about technology, and I'll just take an example from the other day. I was flying, I can't remember where, but I was flying somewhere, waiting in line, and I think I looked at my investments. I looked and see how well I was doing. I just pulled up my app. I paid a couple bills. I transferred some money to my kids. I then logged into my mother-in-law's account, because I'm the power of attorney. I'm not doing anything I shouldn't be doing. And I did all the same stuff for her, all before I got in my seat on my plane. And so I think we all know that, but I think we also forget where we just came from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, in terms of what you could do, what you couldn't do. I think those are some of the obvious things in terms of technology and how we're using the technology to make things just far more efficient for us. So when you think about logistics, the technology's been fantastic. But at the end of the day, where technology can't, and I think it was John said this in the previous panel, said, there's not an app that's going to make you healthy, and there's not an app that's going to make you wealthy, and it's just not there. Maybe you can invest in the app that would sell its products and services. Sure, that may take you there, but the app's not going to get you there. And it's the advice and the counsel and the care and the planning and being thoughtful about what you do with your wealth or your business or your family in terms of the dynamics and what you're thinking about doing, being purposeful. That's what helps you get to where you want to go. Technology's not gonna solve that for you. And so I think while it's been very, very helpful and it can get you faster to where you want to go, at the end of the day, the serious wealth conversations really needs to be with your trusted advisors to help you kind of map that out and get there.
So it's still about people.
Still about people. It's
building relationships.
and you're in banking, I'm in the wealth management side, there's some overlap there, and our kind of saying within UBS is that this always has been a relationship business, and it always will be a relationship business. It's always about people, today, tomorrow, and forever. No matter what happens, the wealthier you become, the more you're dealing with issues and challenges with your family or your business or personally, the more you're going to want somebody to talk to and help you through that.
Perfect, thank you. Stu, a growing and developing business climate that becomes more and more reliant upon new technology and innovation intensifies the need for top-tier cybersecurity. We've talked a little bit about this, but can you delve a little bit more into that for us and what that needs to look and feel like?
I was kind of like listening to what my wealth advisor here said, and he was looking at his phone and essentially using the phone to do all kinds of financial transactions. I was thinking, well, at the same time, a hacker is looking at all this, is sniffing the packets that are going over the air, and seeing exactly what he is doing. He sees the username and the password that he uses to log into his mom's account, and now owns his mom's bank account. So with this whole technology that is rapidly improving, there is a massive liability, and that is that most apps are built with time to market and not built with security as the basic bottom line most important thing. Most software is hackable. Hardware is harder to hack but still possible. However, the human is very easy to hack. It takes a minute to hack a human. And so the human truly is and always will remain the weak link in IT security. So technology as a tool is extremely useful. It speeds up the process. Yes, it will drive down cost and it will improve service, but if you don't develop that technology with security in mind, it becomes literally shooting fish in a barrel for an accomplished hacker. And data breaches are a dime a dozen, and phishing is usually what it starts. So if you think to deploy technology in your organization, any organization, security has to be top of mind.
Absolutely. And I'm sure all of you, go ahead.
I was just going to add, as I listened to my financial planning colleague talk about using his phone for financial transactions, and my cybersecurity colleague talking about the potential liability, the lawyer up here wanted to remind everyone you need very good disclaimers on all of your websites.
And I'd like to thank you all for scaring everybody in this room.
I love it. In banking, they tell us it's one click. Everything has to be one click through, so I get that. Ron, this is for you. Speak to the collaboration with government agencies and legislators as it relates to all of the things that we're talking about and the challenges that are associated with government and bringing technology into our state.
Sure, it's an excellent question, and public-private partnerships are really a core engine for driving business in this community, and McDill Air Force Base is really at the center of that. So just by way of example, on our Shumaker Advisors side of the practice, we have a congressman for this hotel here, Congressman Christ, who happens to sit on the House Appropriations Committee. And there are a whole lot of defense contractors, both in cybersecurity and defense contracting, and even in areas like healthcare, because what a lot of folks don't understand and appreciate, Department of Defense and National Institute of Health fund a whole lot of medical research in the area of things like electronic medical records, but also in pure medical research. So we have seen a lot of our clients, particularly as the appointment of Congressman Chris to the Appropriations Committee got solidified, reach out and begin to partner with government in order to further those public-private partnerships and fund these initiatives here locally. That's one way that those things can happen. I think there was a mention earlier on this panel of the really a business-minded approach that most of our local elected officials here on really both sides of the bay and in the 8-county region have. It is very important for everybody in this room who is not an elected official, and I've only seen a few in the room, and those are great, and we appreciate your public service, but it's very important for everybody else in this room to be very politically active, to be very politically engaged, make sure your local elected officials and our elected officials in Tallahassee and Washington understand what's important to you, and you understand what the opportunities are to partner with government to further advance your business.
Great. Well, thank you. This 25 minutes went extremely fast, so let's thank all of our panel here.
Hello. I want to thank the participants of the innovation panel for their contributions to the event. Now I will be moderating the third panel, which will be called Forging Ahead, Tackling Challenges and Embracing Opportunities in Tampa Bay's Transport Sector. I'm excited to be a part of this panel because I believe mobility is one of the critical issues that is facing not only our cities locally here, but it's a key word all around the world. So joining me on this panel, I would like to invite Gary Sasso, CEO of Carlton Fields, Chris Bowen, Chief Development Strategist at RDManagement, Beth Alden, Executive Director at Hillsborough Metropolitan Planning for Transportation, and CeSar Hernandez, Executive Director at Tampa Bay Mobility Alliance. Chris Bowen here. He'll be back. Okay, well, we'll begin. If you guys would like to take a moment and introduce yourselves.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Gary Sasso, the President and CEO of Carlton Fields. Carlton Fields is a national law firm with 11 offices in 7 states, but we were founded in Tampa in 1901, and we're very pleased and proud to continue to be headquartered here, and we're deeply invested in the Tampa Bay region. We have the highest hopes for our continuing progress here. In fact, as I look forward, I think the next 10 years will be the golden age of Tampa Bay. Our law firm services all the sectors you were hearing from today: healthcare, technology, and development. Thanks for having us with you.
Good afternoon, I'm Beth Alden, and I am the Executive Director for the Hillsborough Metropolitan Planning Organization for Transportation, which is quite a mouthful. I know we're basically responsible for a long-range transportation plan for Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and unincorporated Hillsborough County. And how many people knew that we have a long-range transportation plan? If you didn't know that we have a long-range transportation would you have wished that we had a long-range transportation plan? Yeah, I think we all are happy that there is a plan and that we have a strong partnership with the other MPOs of the Tampa Bay region. We have the longest standing partnership in a region of any of the MPOs in Florida, and we're going to continue to build on that to create strong cross-county connections.
Thank you. Well, my name is CeSar Hernandez, and I am the Executive Director of the Tampa Bay Mobility Alliance, or as we call it, TVMO. And TVMO is a tri-county bipartisan 501c3 organization that's really dedicated to be able to be, number one, an entry point for tangible transportation solutions. Secondly, safe place for transportation deliberations. And lastly, to be able to advocate for tangible transportation solutions across a 3-county region. We believe that transportation and mobility equals freedom. So we have the heavy lift of really creating an organization that's built of trust and that can finally move our region forward.
This one work?
Yes. Chris was MIA, and now you have found us on the panel.
Well, welcome everybody. Glad to be here. I'm Chris Bowen. I'm Chief Development Strategist for RDManagement. We are probably best known here locally as the owners of the University Mall property. Approximately 100-acre site adjacent to the VA hospital campus and the University of South Florida, and all of the pieces of our Tampa Bay, one of our Tampa Bay's largest medical districts. I'm a lead developer. I'm also recently took on another hat to wear as the chairman of the of Tampa's Innovation Partnership. So, which is, I'm proud to be a part of that organization, and it really is, I think, more representative of how we look at a property like the University Mall, where we didn't buy it because it's a mall. We bought it because of where it is, and not because of exactly where it is on that street, adjacent to all the fabulous players that are there, but really because of the region. And so I've heard a lot of others discussing this regional outlook, and that is so critical. Where we're at today in Tampa Bay, we really can't compete with one another. We really have to start working with one another and playing off of and leveraging off of one another. And I think what we'll discuss here in just a little bit, this whole idea of transportation is all about connectivity and proximity, and really being able to, again, leverage off of the things that have been happening here for well over a couple centuries.
Excellent. Thank you all again. I think where it'd be interesting for us to begin today, I know we spoke a bit before the panel about what we could cover, and there's a lot in this area, especially from my perspective. I had the opportunity to live abroad for about 15 years, and coming back, I always kind of surprised when I'm reminded about the challenges to mobility that are faced by us here in the U.S. Whereas here in this region specifically, I think with all sort of being ahead of the fast-paced growth that's happening right now, we're at an opportunity to really invest in a lot of new technologies that can help us going forward. So sort of what Commissioner Welch mentioned in his speech, starting with the sales tax that was passed in Hillsborough County last year. Beth, if you would talk a little bit about what impact you foresee that happening in the area.
Well, I just have to say that this is such an exciting time to be in transportation planning in Hillsborough County. And for, like I said, long-range transportation plan. So for years, I've been having to say to people, that intersection project you want, yeah, that's on our priority list. Maybe we'll get to it in 20 years. And now we can say, we can fix that. We have a way to fix that. And it's because the sales tax that was approved by a strong majority of our voters focuses on the basics, on the things that we all agree that we need. So we knew that we had shortfalls in maintenance. We knew that we had shortfalls in upgrading our traffic signal systems. How many times have you come up to that traffic light and sat there and there is mini cross traffic and you're wondering why the signal doesn't change? It's because we need to invest in the signal technology and in a way that can adjust in real time to you being there, that it can communicate back to the traffic management center, and that ultimately it can communicate with all of the smart car technology that we know is going to be growing in all the vehicles on the roads. So by focusing on these bread and butter things, we're going to be able to make those really obvious investments that are going to have an impact countywide.
Well, just to follow up a little bit on that, specifically to the technology side, what are you guys doing to really look at sort of forward-looking technologies, not just what's, we already exist in other places, but have there been discussions about sort of more future technologies that can be implemented already or start planning for that?
Sure, that's a great question. So, one of the questions that I keep getting is, well, what about those driverless cars? What changes is that going to make? And the folks who are looking at technology are kind of all over the map on what does it mean for us. It's certainly going to help folks who right now don't have a way to drive themselves. If they're visually impaired, for example, if they're mobility impaired, and if they can pay to access a driverless car, that opens up a world to them that they didn't have before. It also could help with our severe crash rates, and we have some of the highest rates of serious injuries in our traffic crashes of anywhere in the country. So these are both meaningful improvements for us. On the other hand, it could also mean that we have more driving around on the roads, not only more trips, but potentially longer trips, because we're reducing barriers to trips. We're already seeing that in places like San Francisco and New York, just with Uber and Lyft. So that you have not only the trips that are being made by Uber and Lyft, you also have them circulating out on the roads. And it turns out that they like to hang out on the roads that are going the slowest. So they're actually driving up congestion on the most congested roads. So there's a lot of trade-offs here. And so we're looking at that, and the first thing that we can do is try to make sure that we can optimize the systems that we have. And that's why that having the smart technology in the traffic signal systems that can communicate with those cars will help to optimize the space that we have on the roads.
Sure.
Yeah, let me add some comments to that. I think technology can be a two-edged sword in the area of transportation. I happen to be an advocate of rail, and often rail is attacked as an outdated 19th century technology. We should be pursuing it. We should be focused on autonomous vehicles. But that's a non-starter. If you talk to people who are deeply engaged in the study of autonomous vehicles, they will say they're at least 30, 40 years away. They will claim that they've got millions of miles on the road mapped already, but those miles are achieved based on the navigation of these vehicles with photographs. They have computers with photographs of the roadways. They're not actually seeing the roadways. They're not seeing pedestrians or disturbances in the roadway. They will be successful only when all of us are off the roads. and they don't have to anticipate or unpredictable behaviors. So I don't see that happening for quite some time. And somebody who was working on this with Google finally laughed, said they're at least 40 years away. In the meantime, every time somebody talks about rail, the argument is raised, oh, well, you've got to go to rail, autonomous vehicles will come to us, they'll be at our disposal. And it's used as a way to put the kibosh on the development of rail, which is a technology that we have available to us today, and it can be upgraded using modern technology for rail. So I think we have to be very, very careful about chasing shiny objects. I first got interested in transportation when I chaired the Tampa Bay Partnership in 2010, and I chaired the Transportation Task Force for 6 years thereafter. And I think transportation is largely about economic development. It's about moving people around. If you talk to people who are engaged in transportation as engineers, they will say, tell me a point A and a point B, and I'll tell you how to connect it up. You talk to people who are community builders, who are leaders, who are establishing a vision for the future, they look at it differently. They say, how do we want to guide growth? What's smart growth? Where do we want development to occur? And then that's where rail comes into play. And autonomous vehicles do not come into play. Look at what they're doing in Europe. There's probably no more progressive city in the United States than New York, and they're looking for ways to reinvest in their subway system. They're not counting on autonomous vehicles. Those are just more cars on the roads.
No, you bring up a very good point. I think for me as well, I know, well, I don't have a car just because I want more public transportation options. I like walking around. And I think also for young people, the first panel spoke a lot about keeping the young people in the area. And one of the big things I think to draw them is transportation as well. They like to have different types of options. And you, well, especially CeSar, can speak to a little bit of how the community is speaking with one voice to try to push these issues forward.
Yes, correct. And just to kind of just touch on the technology piece, so transportation and mobility technology is probably the next .com, right? All of the emerging technology that's happening is around the mobility sector, right? The fastest billion-dollar valuated company in American history is a scooter company, right? In 7 months, Bird became unicorn status. And the reason that happens within the micromobility space is because through rideshare, what the rideshare companies started seeing was that they don't make the most impact in short trips, right? The driver loses out and so does the company. So this first and last mile kind of space, how are you able to service the people that just needed to travel 2, 3, 4 blocks? And that's when you see the onset of micromobility. And I think that scooters is really just the beginning, right? You look at companies like Gotcha that's having full suite of micromobility options, scooters, trikes, e-bikes, right? So I think that the future is super micro with micromobility and super macro, right? Looking at companies like Hermes that are trying to get from New York to Tokyo in 35 minutes, right? Or the entire Hyperloop sector that's looking to make states into communities and cities into neighborhoods, right? So there's a lot of innovation happening in the transportation and mobility space, but it's important for communities to really align themselves, because what the danger is how do you implement these technologies while being sensitive to the communities that it's serving, right? So Gary brought up a good point. You were talking about autonomous vehicles, but we need to talk about how to remove cars off the road, right? How do we take back our streets, right? The cars are about a 100-year-old phenomenon. So for 100 years, we've built our infrastructure around cars and vehicles. But what we are seeing is this trend towards creating these urban dense areas that are car-free, right? So I think that the future is removing vehicles off the road so we can take back our streets and really allow society to participate, live, work, and play.
You bring up a couple interesting points, and I want to, in a minute, come back to Gary about the education part, but Chris can speak to this because of the projects you've been working on, that you're really looking at how walkability, mobility all interact. So.
Right, I think from a technology standpoint, just to sort of wrap that up a little bit, AI is here. It's here more than you can even imagine. In every sector you can think about. And I think AI is going to help us deliver some solutions
in near term as well as long term. So I think that's one thing. The other thing, if you work in distribution, nationally, internationally, you deal with a lot of logistical technologies and methodologies. They talk a lot about the last mile. I think in terms of building an innovation ecosystem that is part of that healthcare, medical, cyber, big data, big science, all those pieces are married within that innovation ecosystem and community. I think you need to, and it's drilling down here to Tampa Bay, I think I would talk more about the first block for us. There is so much we can do on our streets, on our block, and it's a block by block plan, while these other big ideas and big technologies and big constructs are being developed. Don't let that discourage you. Work on your block. Let's work on our blocks, but with the mindset that I know what block you're working on. You know what block I'm working on. And we work together to connect those blocks. And it can be some very simple things. I mean, I'm a certain generation, so, when I hear about scooters, I have to say, I sort of giggle, once in a while when I hear about it. It's like, but it's amazing. I mean, what you could do with a scooter, okay? So don't laugh about it. I mean, we can laugh about it. You want to have a little fun, but it can be little things. I think you sometimes make this too complicated. About in the innovation community, we're trying to connect to one another in a human level, in a professional level, in a community level. And we're trying to get proximity to all the goodies. That's really what it's at. I'm developing a 100-acre property, and I'm trying to go along a model that is essentially the next stage research and development park. But it's an urban walkable village that is anchored, rather than department stores, it's anchored by technology and bio science and life science players, but those players don't want to just be all in a one-trick pony, all work zone. They want to be infused into a more vibrant community that really feeds them and that they can feed back. That's transportation. We're trying to connect our visions together, our energies together. That can be as simple as getting on a bike or getting on a scooter, or making it easier to walk 6 blocks so that it feels like I just walked 1 block. So, again, I think the technologies are really coming to our rescue here, and AI, I think, is the biggest and offshoots of that. But let's also remember that you can make a difference today, especially on your block.
And Gary talked a little bit, CeSar brought up a little bit about the importance of educating both the public and private sectors about the importance of these things going forward, and to help them understand why the need is so great and why that investment is so important. And I know you've done a lot with the community, so if you could speak a little bit to what the feedback has been from the community and how you've seen their education grow as far as the needs for better mobility.
Well, it's a huge challenge. If you take a survey of the Tampa Bay community and ask what are the most pressing issues, transportation always scores first or second. There's a widespread understanding of the importance of this. And I think that was played out in the Hillsborough County referendum. That was a grassroots, citizens-driven initiative, and the people overwhelmingly supported it. So I do think that people get that mobility is important. Now that said, there's a lot of complexity to this issue. Right now, as the prior panel pointed out, we're in pretty good shape in our region. Mobility's not all that bad. I spent 10 years in the DC area before coming to Tampa, and it's so congested, you can't get around there. Here it's a breeze by comparison. Yeah, we have traffic jams, commuting is difficult, but we can't let our conditions today drive our planning for tomorrow. Because when we're talking about transportation, we're talking long term. We're talking about rail systems, for example. You're talking about 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And when you're looking at the growth of Tampa Bay, looking at the growth of Florida, we are importing people, unlike other regions in the country, and we can anticipate great growth 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. So I think we have to be very careful in terms of our understanding of the problem, not to gauge what we need based on conditions that exist today. So I think the public does get that we have transportation needs and challenges, but some of that is driven by the potholes that exist today in our roads and the traffic signals that aggravate us today in our lives. And some of the congestion we have, and the instinct is, well, let's add more roads, let's widen the roads. Well, you got to do that too, but we absolutely have to think long term. And I think the education really has to start with visionary leadership. We really have to look to the public sector. We need visionary leaders to help guide the population, understand that in a community we have to invest, just like in a business we have to invest. And some of these are going to be long-term investments, and we can't be short-sighted based on what advantages we enjoy today. We can't be sanguine about it. We're talking about talent with the last panel. Yeah, we do pretty well with talent. But if you look at the surveys, the Tampa Bay Partnership does a survey, McKinsey has done it for Florida. We have some challenges. Other regions of the country are competing very aggressively against us. And if we want to attract and retain investment and talent, we have to create the kind of community that people want. We have to create the kind of buzz that millennials want. They want high-density, mixed-use, urban excitement. They want rail. They want to be able to get out of their apartment, get downstairs, jump on a train, go to the theater, go to the sports event, go to dinner. They want that kind of mobility. So we have to be very open-minded about what's going on around the country. We need to be taught by progressive leaders, and we have to be open-minded ourselves to change and not be too complacent about the comforts we enjoy today.
Great, thank you, Gary. I think we're just about out of time, unless there's something anyone else would like to add.
I would just say that, you know, there are a couple things going on here. There's a lot of frustration when someone mentions transportation, but I would look at the positive of that as opposed to the negative. It's because there's a lot of opportunity here. And it's what Commissioner Welch, I thought he just did a beautiful job in the opening. I agreed with everything he was bringing up. You know, we have so many wonderful sectors and pockets and neighborhoods, you know, of interest and relevance within our larger metro area. And the good news is they're spread out a little bit, and they were spread out for a reason, because areas like this, regions, metro areas like this, need to be sized and scaled for major growth. Otherwise, you're not going to have the lifestyle, you're not going to have the livability. But in the interim, as that is evolving, it's frustrating because your airport's over here, one of your major universities is out over here, you've got a major, one of the top medical centers in the United States on an island, which is pretty cool. It's got a nice, it's nicely connected, quickly connected, fortunately, to our low, what I call our lower downtown, because I like to say where I'm developing, that's the upper downtown, that's the uptown. And it's hard to get to all these places. Not as hard as it is in Seattle, Boston, and others. But I can tell you, 25 years ago, you would go to Phoenix at night, you'd fly in, and you would see this gridded area, the city, and it was very easy to figure out. It was very easy to get around. Denver, you could do the same thing. 40 years ago, you go to Boston, it looked a lot like Milwaukee. And if anybody is in Milwaukee, just a very nice, easy community to get around in. Boston was just like it. Look at Boston today. Look at Denver today. Look at Phoenix. Guess what? Tampa Bay looks exactly like when I stepped 25 years ago off the plane at night in Phoenix. It looks like that now. And we don't have much time to really start to figure some of these things out. So, but again, we have our pins in the right spots. Now it's about connecting those. The other last word I would say about this, and it's something that is a concern to me, is in this part of the evolutionary cycle that Tampa Bay is in terms of a major
innovation community that is poised to support and deliver not just locally and regionally, but nationally and internationally. As long as we're not as well connected, we have the danger of competing against one another. Because when you're not connected in a metro like this, you tend to see markets and opportunities as finite. When you start to get more connected, then you start looking through each other's eyes and you start looking out and you start to see that your market is infinite. But it needs a strategy to tap it. That's where we're moving. But I would encourage everyone, really, let's not compete with one another. Let's do it friendly. The little friendly competition is all good. It's challenging, and that's necessary. But don't compete like you're protecting what you've got. Share it. And that's what a good transportation system, multimodal, allows an area to do. Great connectivity, bringing areas together to get the proximity, both of walkable or rideable capability. That's really what I think everyone was really starting to talk about today, and it was really great to be a part of it. Thank you.
If I could just add briefly, we've been planning and planning and planning for decades, and now we get a chance to build.
Excellent. I think that's a good message for everyone who wants to hear here. Thank you again. I promise we're almost there. We're almost to the cocktails, so just bear with us a little bit longer. It's now my pleasure to welcome our final keynote speaker for today's event, Sandra Merman, Commissioner of Hillsborough County. So please give her a warm welcome.
Well, good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be here. I do want to say a hearty congratulations to the whole Invest team for all the hard work they put in. It's just been a great process on my side of it, and just interviewing and just listening to the great things they've done. So congratulations, you've done a great job. Thank you. Well, I am the only thing standing between you and the cocktail reception, so this is going to be brief. But I do want to thank all the panelists, of course, for sharing their thoughts and reasons why Tampa Bay is really becoming so important, and the important player, actually, in the nation. We're in the spotlight. I just came back from the Florida Association of Counties. I literally just drove into the parking lot here from Orlando. And you know what? I've been going for 8 years, and it's gratifying to hear that people are coming up to us, and just the recognition of what we're accomplishing here is there for once. And I feel passionate about this area because I've been here so long. But gosh, when you hear, wow, how's Hillsborough doing? How's Pinellas doing it? They're working together. They're getting it done. But for once, we are on the map. And it's just very, very exciting to see. I think our healthcare and life sciences sectors are attracting the best and the brightest talent and companies, I think, across the United States. In the past 5 years, we've welcomed Bristol Myers Squibb, Amgen, and Johnson & Johnson. They are definitely leaders, and they're here for a reason. They just don't pick up and move here because they think they're going to have a nice little office building and go to the beach every day. They're here because they know there's talent here. And especially with Moffitt Cancer Center, the University of South Florida, you look at their transformation over the past few years and what Dr. Judy Genshaft has done for the University of South Florida. They have gone from a sleepy commuter school till they are on the map also. And so I think it's just all the stars are lining up, and it's just we're attracting top students, researchers. People are now vying to get into the University of South Florida because their enrollment is just increased so much. But I think the big news, of course, the last couple of weeks has been the partnership, the really good partnership with the Tampa General Hospital and actually University of South Florida and creating that medical district. I mean, this is what is going to put us on par with like Boston and Houston, where they have those great educational institutions partnered with, a hospital to really deliver the best care to people and the residents in the community, but also throughout the state. And some of the industry's most promising young companies, we've got one of Morphogenesis, whose businesses involve exciting new immunotherapies that help our bodies fight cancer. They're growing here because of them. And that is, and I encourage all of you, if you've never done it, then go take a tour of Moffitt, see what they're doing to really fight cancer. It's amazing. I remember going in there as a state legislator years ago, back in 2004, and we had just provided funding, and the labs were all empty. Now they're all full, and they need more space. So it's just very exciting to see all the potential and opportunity that's out there. And when you add in St. Pete College, all the USF campuses, the University of Tampa, we have over 100,000 students here at any one time. And I know I heard the speakers talk about, keeping the students here. And Mayor Bob Buckhorn used to talk about this a lot, how to keep his daughter here, the millennials. It's a supply and demand. We now have the supply. We got to encourage companies here to answer that demand. Because the only way we're going to keep these students here is by having the right jobs available. And I heard the speakers mention that, but this is not a challenge. It's a great opportunity for us, because if we can keep our millennials here, we're really going to grow our talent base. And we're going to grow, actually, people that want to run for office, people that want to have different careers. So it's exciting. Our increasing appeal for innovators and technology professionals is no accident. The community's worked hard for the last 2 decades to become a place where technology companies can thrive. Our efforts are paying off. Commissioner Ken Welch can attest, our startup operations in Pinellas and Hillsborough counties is by far, we are the leader in the state in startups. You look at the Wade, you look at the state, I can't remember the name of your effort here in Pinellas, but you've got a huge startup operation here. We've got the Entrepreneurial Collaborative Center that our Hillsborough County has started, and we're getting ready to build. It's become so big that we're going to build an e-factory that's going to house everybody under one roof. And that's what's going to attract the venture capitalists here. And again, going back to opportunity, people are going to have those jobs that they want and that opportunity to make their dream come true that they've always dreamed of. Our growth in cybersecurity, data analytics, our colleges and universities are quick to respond to employers' needs, but we're really transforming Tampa and Hillsborough County and actually Pinellas and St. Petersburg into a place where young talent really wants to make its mark. And if you really want to know how a young talent making its mark, come to Tampa and see all the scooters laying on the side of the street. But it's exciting. There are so many scooters, and I mean, I found one in front of my house. People just drop them in front of your house. It's really, it's fun. But they're riding them everywhere, and it is a big opportunity. I told Commissioner Welch, just live for scooters, and you'll be successful. But everybody wants to come here, and employers tell me all the time it's great. They can now attract those senior level executives here. Everybody wants to come here. I mean, you can have an office overlooking the water. You can leave your office, be on the golf course in 10 minutes. I mean, it's just great. The quality of life here is something that we all dream about if you're up north, but here we don't. It's a reality. But I do think one of the reasons we've been so successful is because of the collaboration between our local government, our business, our academic and nonprofit sectors. We're all working together. Yes, we don't always agree. I'll admit it, and we have differing opinions on how to get there, but it's healthy, and it does get worked out in the end, and we are going to make this the region, in the southeast region where everybody wants to be. And you just pick up the paper every day. We're getting another #1 ranking in like young people that want to start a business here. We're getting, it's just fabulous, the rankings that we're getting. We've got our transportation collaborative groups like TBARDA, TMA, our Tampa Bay Partnership, and many, many more that are, we're trying to create this regional effort, this regional collaboration so that we connect. And I've heard that word up here a lot. And that's what we use so much, I know on our dais at the County Commission, is connectivity, getting things to connect, whether it's a road or it's people, whatever it is, you have to be able to connect the dots. But we're being smart, we're being strategic, and we're trying to just broadcast over the world, and I know Invest is helping us do that, that Tampa Bay is such a welcoming place to do business. As we heard from the transportation panelists, which I really thought was a really great panel, thinking and acting regionally is going to be very important in solving our transportation challenges. That is, for me, and we had a critical vote the other night, our Metropolitan Planning Organization, to act regionally. And we were successful, but again, we just got to work hard at it. And we've got to, about all the businesses came together. It was a great effort. It was good to see everybody just kind of share their opinions and come forward and then come out with a great result. But we're just, and it's time that we do that. We have to think and act regionally to solve these challenges. But I'm more confident than ever than I've been in my years in public service. And I did serve in the state legislature. I now serve, of course, on the county commission. That we do have the right people in the right place, in the right roles to find the needle on transportation. But keeping up with our growing region is really a daunting task. Hillsborough County alone, we are welcoming about 80 new residents a day. Think about it. That's a lot of infrastructure to keep up with. That is a lot to deal with every day, especially as a county commissioner. And actually, this is a Bay Area challenge because they want to get to the beach. They want to come over here to Pinellas. They look at this as one big area. But it's about quality of life. And I think that the best thing we can do, especially for these major projects, you heard from one of them today, Uptown, we're changing our land use to really reflect nodes of development and redevelopment so that people can live, work, and play in one section of our community, or many sections. Because now we have Midtown, So we've got Uptown, Midtown, West Shore, we've got Channelside District. Over here, you've got the downtown St. Petersburg effort going on. Amazing, the growth. And it's really, it's just so exciting. And it's about, I think at the end of the day, for me, it's about making sure our citizens have good paying jobs and that they can get to their jobs. For me, I just think that's so critical at the end of the day, and that's got to be our only goal, because if they don't have a job, they don't have a good quality of life, we're not going to get them to be a great resident here in our community. And so, in closing, I think what sets us apart from everybody else, not just in our state and the nation, as we go through, I think, this fantastic transformation from a little sleeping jewel, a little gem that we've been kind of this secret for so long, but now we're just expanding into this with all the new talent we have here, and we're on the move. And we've got the right economic climate, we've got the right regulatory climate to attract those people to come here. And that's what the transformation, we have to establish that baseline so that it can really grow and expand and take off. And Mayor Buckhorn used to always say, let's just get it done. Work hard, all work hard, and get it done. So thank you all. Hope you had a great time here at Invest. It's just a super
Hello.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Alex Wilkinson. I'm the Executive Director of Invest Tampa Bay. I'm actually the last person before everyone gets to eat and drink. So I'm just going to say, keep this to 1 minute. Thank you all for coming. It has been my privilege and my pleasure to be invited to all of your offices over the last 10 months. I'm so very proud of Tampa Bay being my home. I've lived here for 12 years. And I think this full conference room here shows you the growth and the progression that Tampa Bay is seeing. So I would love to personally invite you to enjoy our cocktail reception and our heavy hors d'oeuvres. We have a bar over in the corner and a bar out in the arcade. Thank you again for coming, and we'll see you next year for Invest Tampa Bay 2020. Thank you.